What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are on to round 5. I've already done the Wales-France game because they've announced the teams early, but this will actually be the first game of round 5. These are the preview videos where, of course, I chuck on a game of rugby in the background. I play as the lowest rated team, which in this case happens to be Italy, and we go through the teams announced in real life. There's a lot to talk about with these teams that have been announced. So let's jump into the game and talk about these teams. So Tommaso Alan will get us kicked off and underway. So for those of you who haven't followed this series super closely, basically I go and find the teams and I immediately sit down to play this game in the background. Sometimes I don't even know who's on the teams, but I did see this Scotland team announced and there's been so many changes. So let's start off talking about Scotland. Of course, they lost that game against Ireland, which was, I think some people could probably have seen coming. The Scotland performance was good, just not up to the standard of Ireland. I am currently in the process of making a video doing a bit of a breakdown about that Ireland-Scotland game, so if anyone's interested in a more sort of analytical view about certain areas and key areas that funded that game and made the outcome what it was, make sure you subscribe to the channel to be ready for when that comes out. I might get that out tomorrow. It might come out on the weekend while the actual rugby's on for the next round. So Scotland will be looking to try and bounce back. They've had a good tournament so far, in all honesty, beating England, losing to Wales by just a point and finishing very close to the Ireland team. They almost managed to come back. 3 points the difference in that game. Of course, they missed out on the France game. So going through to Italy, this will be the game they'll just want to dominate. I think Italy have struggled in this Six Nations, to say the least. I think this will be the game Scotland will want to target to try and get some big scores in. So let's chuck on screen the team. And there have been a lot of changes across the board here. So starting off in the front row, Rory Sutherland, David Cherry and Xander Fagerson is back in the team. He's back after his red card. We get to see Xander Fagerson back on the field. David Cherry starting ahead in the hooker position is a big call. The line-out was in all sorts of issues against that Ireland team. I'll be going through that in the breakdown a little bit more, why that happened so much. But the Scotland line-out really seemed to be struggling. George Turner has had a really good tournament so far, and that line-out just let him down in the last game. So I don't think it's a terrible move to put David Cherry on for a game and let him have a bit of a start. But it's still a strong front row. I think they'll be able to do all right against the Ireland scrum anyway. And I assume the Ireland line-out was a little bit more disrupted than we expect the Italian one to be. So I imagine line-outs will be a little bit better. Moving to the lock, Sam Skinner gets to start, who isn't a person we get to see an awful lot of in this Scottish team. I do believe Sam Skinner plays for the Exeter Chiefs, I believe. So I don't know a great deal about him. I don't think he's had too many caps for Scotland, but we have lost both of the Gray brothers. Scott Cummings also out. I don't know what he did to his thumb in the game. It looked like he might have dislocated his thumb or broken something in his wrist, not sure, but he wasn't going to be able to come back in for this game. So Grant Gilchrist will be finishing off in that 5 shirt. So their lock position taking a bit of a knock in terms of the quality players we know that normally fill in at lock. They've done very well in the Six Nations, so it'll be interesting to see how this new 4-5 combination gets on, but still should hopefully be doing well against this Italian team. Moving to the back row, 6, 7, 8, of course, the partnership they love across this Six Nations if they can get it. Jamie Ritchie, Hamish Watson and Matt Fagerson. Jamie Ritchie and Hamish Watson are just brilliant. I think they're two of the best players in the Scottish team. And we saw how well they did against Ireland. An awful lot of tackles being made. Hamish Watson desperate for those turnovers and managing to get that try right at the end of the game that drew them level. I think he's doing really well. Matt Fagerson is, like, as I've called him before, a mini CJ Stander, even though he's about 6'4". He's a danger runner when he's got the ball in hand. He's a big man, so I'm sure we'll see a lot of crash ball in this Italy game. We're trying to make a bit of ground. Moving on to the back, Scott Steele will take over at scrum half over Ali Price, which is a big call. They've obviously seen that Italy aren't currently doing brilliantly in this Six Nations, so they have put on a bit of a lesser team for this one. Not something we've seen a lot of the other teams do. They've tried to use that team to get a bit of momentum going towards other games. Scotland have gone for a little bit, not quite a B team, but certainly in key areas they've put different 15 players on just to try and ease up on the team a little bit. So Scott Steele will be coming in at number 9. It'd be nice to see him get a bit more game time. We know how well Ali Price has been doing, so Scott Steele hasn't had a lot of game time, although we did get to see him play a bit of 6 and a bit of 8 last week after, was it Scott Cummings had to come off for him? I'm not sure. Stuart Hogg will be taking over at fly half. Finn Russell did come off with a head injury. I wasn't aware it was that bad that he was going to miss a game, but Stuart Hogg filling in at 10. He didn't play terribly when he took took over at 10 in all honesty. His kicking percentage was decent. I believe he has played fly half before. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. We'll just be missing out on the running. Duhan van der Merwe finishing that 11 jersey, of course, is where we expect him to be. He's been quiet for a couple of games now. He'll be looking to have a good game against Italy, especially with how dangerous he can be. He's a big man, hard man to stop. Sam Johnson and Hugh Jones with the 12-13 combination this week, which would be nice to see a bit of a difference. This is like the old Scotland. This is a Scotland we saw about 2 years ago, and there's a great partnership. I'm a big fan of Sam Johnson. I always rant about how good Hugh Jones is. Chris Harris has been doing well, but he's much more of a crash 13, whereas Hugh Jones is just an aggressive outside centre who just finds the room, and we got to see it in that Ireland game when he came on for the bench. Great player. I think this is a great centre partnership. Darcy Graham taking over the 14 shirt on the right wing because Hogg has to take 10, Shaun Maitland going at full back. But in all honesty, having Hogg, van der Merwe, Hugh Jones, Darcy Graham and Shaun Maitland all on at the same time, that is a huge back row for players. But I don't know if Gregor Townsend will ever watch my video. I would be very doubtful he would ever come around to watch my video, but you have ballsed up my fantasy team. For anyone who doesn't know, we have been doing a fantasy team on Super Brew throughout this whole tournament, and I tried to base this team around how good Scotland were going to be, and all of my players have moved or changed. So that's going to have to try and fix that along the way. But in terms of the actual game in real life, this is a hugely strong Scotland team. Even though they're missing some of the normal starting 15 and a couple of the big names, this is a good reinforced team, and the manoeuvrability of this team to just swap people into different positions is great. We will take a look at the replacements super quick before we talk about the Italian team. So the front row replacements, of course, George Turner was always going to be in there. He'll come on in that second half just to try and reboost his confidence after that Ireland game. Jamie Batty will come on along with Simon Bergen. I would imagine around the 50-minute marker. I'm sure Xander Fagerson will want to get a bit of time in, but they'll probably want to get the front row replacements on. They know how much Italy like to play up front. Alex Craig will be coming on at 19. Again, not another name I know an awful lot about. I do believe he plays for... Is it that he plays for Gloucester? I think he plays for Gloucester. But as far as I'm aware, this will be technically his debut. I think I actually saw him in an under-20s game once, and I think I get that confused with the international team. I don't think he's ever made an international play before, so it could be his debut. It could not be. Who knows? I might have to Google that afterwards. Nick Hayden will come on at 20. I imagine for Jamie Ritchie, I believe he can play... He normally plays flanker or number 8, but primarily I think he plays number 6. So I think he might come on for Jamie Ritchie at some point in that second half. Jamie Ritchie doesn't seem to ever play the full 80 anymore, which is a bit of a shame for him. I do like him as a player. I think he's very, very talented. Ali Price, of course, will be the substitute scrum half. He'll want to get a bit of time in. He might even get a try later in that second half after the Italian team slow down a bit. Jaco van der Walt will be going on at 22. We haven't got to see him at all in this Six Nations. He was really impressive in that Autumn Nations Cup and just hasn't had a look in. The manoeuvrability in this team, in fact, let's just mention Chris Harris will also be on at 23. But the manoeuvrability in this team, I have no idea where they're going to go with their subs for this game. I assume Jaco van der Walt will have to come on at fly half. I can't imagine they'll want to take Stuart Hogg off, so maybe Van der Walt will come on at 10. Hogg will move back to fullback. Shaun Maitland could either come off at that point, or Shaun Maitland could go to 11 or 14, which means Darcy Graham or Duhan van der Merwe could come off quite early in that game, and then Chris Harris could come on for Hugh Jones. I believe he's also played a bit of time at 12, so Sam Johnson could go off, and I believe those centres are interchangeable. This back row for Scotland is incredibly diverse, and I really like where they're sort of going. World Cup coming up in 2 years, I think they want players to be able to play multiple positions, and I think they're really beginning to nail it. Even if it will screw up my fantasy, I think it's working really well for Scotland, so Italy are going to have to really watch out for the diversity they have in these teams, and the players that can play multiple positions can be a real threat. Talking of who, let's talk about this Italian team. So Italy aren't having the best Six Nations. We all know that was going to be the case with how many players they've got missing. I do feel very bad for Franco Smith. I think he's really beginning to struggle. We did see him with his head in his hands in that Wales game. He's played a couple of different techniques, putting starting 15 players on the bench to try and prolong how long the team can hold out for. He tried to swap it up in the Wales game. It still went wrong for him. He's tried to switch it up again. This time, he's gone sort of for a 50-50. So we start off in the front row. Fischetti and Biji, who got his yellow card in the last game. Riccioni will be taken over at 3 rather than Zalocci, so he's sort of going for a half-and-half technique. Canone and Rutzer will be taking over in the lock department, so they switched up a couple of locks here again. Negri, Meyer, and Lamaro will also be finished off. That's 6, 7, 8. That's the combo they seem to like. It's working relatively well for them. Johan Myers played pretty well in this tournament so far, actually. Can't take that away from them too much. In the back row, Stephen Varney retaining 9 and Paolo Garbisi. 2 very strong players for them. They're doing really well in that half-pack partnership going on there. Montana Ioane will take the left wing. Federico Mori comes in on the inside centre over Carlo Canna. Maybe they weren't impressed with how much Mori was being able to do from the bench. Not necessarily a game-changing player, so probably worth starting him off. It allows Carlo Canna to come on from the bench, either at fly half or in that inside centre channel, so I don't think that's a bad move. Ignacio Brex finishing in the outside centre, who is slowly beginning to impress me more and more with how aggressive his defence is being. Mattia Bellini on the right wing, I think is a good move. I think he did okay in the Wales game, managing to try and hold up Josh Adams a little bit. And the big one, the move I said that should have happened about 3 games ago, Padovani starting over Trula. Trula has had, I think it's fair to say, a terrible tournament, really not showing off well. As soon as Padovani came on in that game against Wales, the back row changed completely. Really, really strong player. Should have been starting last week. It's a shame for Trula, but Padovani will retain that. So it's a strong 1-15. They're just struggling so much to be able to comprehend what these other Tier 1 nations are bringing. Quickly looking at the substitutions. Lucchesi, Lovotti and Zalocci will come on just to try and bolster somewhere along the line. Favretto will come on in that lock, I imagine, in the second half. I imagine around the 50-55 minutes when they'd like to change their locks up. Mbanda, we still don't get to see a lot from. Violi, it'd be nice to have a bit of game time. It might even be nice to do a half and half with Stephen Varney and get Violi a bit more game time. And then a final big call here. Carlo Canna and Marco Zanon, both on the bench here. So maybe they will be looking for Canna to come on in that fly half position and Zanon to come on in the centre. I'm not sure what the plan is here. I just think Franco Smith is throwing everything he can now at these games. I feel really bad for Italy, but they just can't seem to get a team to click together. There is an awful lot of shifting around in these players. I don't think they've had a lot of time to gel together completely. The back row certainly becoming a lot more set. But in terms of prediction for this game, I think we all going to say it's going to be a Scotland win. The Scotland back row looks dangerous and massive. I think there could be another lot of tries scored here. I'm not sure if there will be quite as many points as we've seen previously, mainly because of how many switches the Scotland team has had to do in order to fulfill their need to meet this game. Maybe they won't do as much, maybe they will. I think my prediction for this game will of course be a Scotland win, but I might call this one closer to the 35 marker. I'm not sure whether they'll get 40 away, and I think looking at how much that Scotland defence can fall apart from pick and drive, as we saw in the Ireland game, I think Italy could have a chance to get maybe even more than 1 try in this game. It'll certainly be a bit of a blowout. I think Scotland are looking incredibly ferocious. They'll be really annoyed to have lost that Ireland game, so I'm expecting Scotland to do well in this game. It would be nice to see Italy be able to hold out a little bit more. I definitely think the swap from Padovani to Trullo is a good call. Bellini on the right wing is a good move. Ioane on the left wing. I think between them, they've got a good backline in this Italian team, but it's whether that defence will hold up against how aggressive we know the Scottish forwards would be. So let me know down in the comments, guys, who you think will take this game. I imagine a lot of people will be saying Scotland. What do you think the points difference will be? Who do you think is going to score tries? How do you think you're looking at the Scotland team in terms of moving round? Hog at fly half. There's a lot of big talking points, so make sure you drop down in the comments what you think about these teams and what you think the final score will be. I think it could be quite an interesting game. It's certainly going to be a nice way to get us into this round 5 game. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will be doing one of these videos for every game in round 5, so make sure you subscribe to the channel just to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.